Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Higurashi When They Cry. It's your boy Karagol Gaming, and you know how we do things around here. It's time to start chapter 4 of Arc 3, so let's get right into it. I'll probably have to do my whole, Alright, let me just do my thing again. I don't know, it doesn't detract that much from the experience, but I like it Bitch? What? What? How the hell does that work? Alright, whatever. So maybe I don't have to do that? Today was the day of the barbecue party that was the Hinamizawa fighters' victory celebration. Of course, I, having prepared myself, skipped breakfast in order to stay hungry. That's a pro play. Though, with all the club members coming, it was pretty possible there would be a contest based on how fast or how much you could eat. Rena was already at our usual meeting place. Mion arrived a few minutes later. Let's.
おじさん、朝ごはんを抜いてきたからお腹ペコペコ。
さすがだな。もちろん俺も朝食抜きで万全の体制だぜ。
二人とも朝食抜きは健康に良くないよ。
You tell him, psycho.
レナはちゃんと食べたんだよ。
そうかそうか。レナは偉いぞ。朝食は一日の基本だもんな。きっと成長途上なミオンを飛び越してナイスバデーになってグラビアを独り占めだ。
I'm sorry, what?
グラビアを独り占め。ナイスバデーになったらレナのとこにも白馬の王子様とか来てくれるかな絶対来ないと思う。ケイちゃんも責任取れないならレナにいい加減なことは吹き込まないように。この子明日から3食くらいまとめて朝食を取り出すかもしれないよ。
Yeah, I could see Rena doing that. Wait, who did this gluttonous princess think was going to come for her?
まあ、とにかく俺たちはさっさと行って大バーベキュー大会としゃれ込もうぜ。
The venue for said barbecue was to be the furthest shrine grounds where Rika-chan lived. They held events and festivals there and barbecues too. It was the place that held all sorts of ceremonies in Hinamizawa. Come to think of it, there was supposed to be a big village festival coming up, wasn't there? Watanagashi or something like that. The scenery you could see from that high up was fairly superb, and the calm atmosphere particular to the shrines was something fairly difficult to find in the city. We left our bicycles at the bottom of the shrine steps and broke into a mad dash up the stairs. When we arrived on the shrine grounds, the Hinamizawa fighters and their fathers had already gathered and had begun setting up for the barbecue early. Of course, Satoko and Rika-chan was there as well. When they noticed our arrival, they waved to us.
忘れずにちゃんと来ましたわね。皆さんが来なければその分お肉が多く食べられましたのに。
And when the topic is food, we're there.
本当に残念でございましたよ。
甘いぜサトコ。俺たちが来た以上、まさか霜降りが一口でも食べられるなんて思ってるんじゃないだろうな。以前ここで弁当を食った時を思い出せ。俺とサトコの致命的なリーチさで今回も圧倒してやるぜ。
なんですって？
Did we eat our bento here?
そんなの絶対に許せませんわ。
Are they referring to the first chapter?
泣こうがわめこうが、サトコは目の前で牛肉を頬張るのを見るだけだ。
Oh my bad, first arc.
安心しろ。ピーマンやナスは譲ってやるからな。
僕もサトコにかぼちゃを焼いたのをいっぱいいっぱい譲ってあげますです。
When Satoko heard the word squash, her complexion changed color. When she took my overwhelming reach into account, she knew it wasn't just a threat, it could actually happen.
監督に伝えとくよ。サトコはかぼちゃが大好きだって。監督のことだから日本全国から特産のかぼちゃを山盛り集めてきてくれるね。
よかったなサトコ。どのかぼちゃもよりどり緑だぞ。朝から晩までずーっと3食かぼちゃ三昧だ。わ
Satoko tried to leap into Rena's chest. Oh no. Clearly, given another second, Rena's Mach punches would have us piled on the ground. Bro, your sentences, I hate you so much. So, just before Satoko hit Rena, I grabbed her by the nape of her neck and pulled her back. A superb reaction with only seconds of foresight, at least it was supposed to be. But for Rena, when I caught the leaping crying Satoko, it looked like I was keeping her to myself. Satoko laughed in a shrill voice at Rika-chan and Rena's unproductive game of tag while we watched them sprawled out on the ground.
大丈夫ですか、前原さん。園崎さんも。
The coach came over and lent us a hand.
まあ、私たちのいつものコミュニケーションですから。どうぞお気遣いなく。
いつも顔面にあざが残るようなコミュニケーションはもう嫌だぞ。
You never learn, do you? Laughed the coach loudly. It made us start laugh too. Satoko's laughter, Rika-chan's yelling, and Rena's strange voice were kind of comfortable to hear. The adults here knew what they were doing, so the barbecue was ready in short order. As the salad oil dripped down onto the plate with a hiss, there was a loud cheer. When the coach brought over a big plate with all the meat on it, we all cheered again.
これ本当にすごいお肉だよ。監督、本当に大奮発したんだね。
約束ですからね。これなんかグラムいくらするか知ってます？本当に奮発したんですよ。
当然ですわ。三流のお肉じゃ昨日の私の大活躍をねぎらうには値しませんでしたよ。そうだね。今日の主賓はさとこちゃんに違いないね。
確かに最後のホームランを打ったのは紛れもなくさとこだもんな。しかも油断させたといえ小細工なしの特大アーチ。
さとこは運動神経は良いのです。悪いどころか世代的には突出してるんじゃない？私なんかと比べても運動能力は決して劣らないでしょ。さとこちゃんってひょっとすると将来はスポーツ界で大活躍できるかもね。なんだか褒めちぎられて照れますわね。むしゃむしゃ。
Satoko, for whom the excessive praise made her not notice the moderately grilled meat being stolen one after the other, was just far too cute. Tomita-kun and Okumura-kun were carrying something over to us. It was a huge barbecue plate.
これぞまさしくバーベキューの主人公の到着じゃねえかよ。
The plate was chock full of skewers with vegetables and meat on them. The grilled burning hot meat juices made a shh sound as they drizzled off. You need a lot of heat for cooking something on a metal skewer, so they had grilled the whole plate at once.
やっぱりこれがなきゃバーベキューとは言わないですよね。
ああ、まったくだ。俺も手を貸すから早く持っていこう。よいしょよいしょ。
everyone greeted us with a cheer. Each person received a skewer with vegetables and big pieces of meat on it. They also received paper cups filled to the brim with juice. In my right hand were pounds of piping hot barbecue. In left was a cup of juice that I could chug down. What? If this didn't make you wanna dance, you weren't a man.
おお、もう我慢できないぜ。ガブッといくぞ。ガブッと。
まだまだケイちゃん。ほらほら、一応セレモニーってことで。
みんな、注目。
The coach, with a cup of beer in his hand, mounted the nearby beer cooler. This was supposed to be a victory celebration after all. We needed an opening statement. Damn, I hope it ends soon. For every second this goes on, a little more of the food's freshness goes away. Blah! Satoko stomped down onto the back of my foot.
まったく、いい年の男が卑しいですわね。もう少しエレガントに我慢できませんの？
俺ってつくづく思ってることが顔に出ちゃうのな。
じゃあみんないいですか？昨日は大勝利でしたね。すごいピッチャーの登場で苦戦もしましたが、こちらも同じくらい頼もしい助っ人の登場で見事逆転勝利を収めることができました。
Both my hands were full, so the adults and older brothers gave us a round of applause.
今日はその戦勝祝賀会です。約束通り美味しいお肉をいっぱい用意しましたからね。今日はいっぱい食べて次の試合への活力にしていきましょう。
Then, after a few words of thanks to the fathers and brothers who helped with the barbecue, he led us in a toast.
乾杯!
They say that when toasting, you would normally down the contents of your cup. But we were young. At the toast, all of us immediately began to dig into our skewers. Thought you were a man, motherfucker. Chug that bitch down. After that, it got really lively, with everyone congratulating one another for the things they did during the game. Like how someone made a great catch, or how awesome someone looked when stealing a base. Of course, they congratulated me too, the savior who appeared to fight against the Koshien pitcher.
まあ俺の活躍も含めてあれはサトコの活躍だったわけだがな。
確かにサトコの作戦ではあったけどさ。
She has low-key been carrying you this entire chapter, by the way.
カメダを口説き落とすなんて真似はケイちゃん以外にはできなかったわけだし、十分ケイちゃんも称えられるに値する活躍をしてるよ。
そういえばケイチ君、あの後亀田君と一緒にケーキを食べに行ったんだよね。
Yes.
なんだかすっごく仲良さそうだった。
ライバル関係から男同士の友情が芽生えちゃったわけ。
そういうのってなんだかその
I'm sorry, what? I violently brushed through Rena's hair as she turned red in the face for some reason at the mention of a friendship between males dispersing her pleasant-seeming ideas. Bro, your fucking sentences! Now then, where's the hero, or rather, the heroine, Satoko? Oh, there she is. Satoko was with Rika-chan, in the middle of bragging her heart out about the home run yesterday. And her teammates spared no compliments for her, since even though he was going easy on her, the fact that she hit a throw from Koshien pitcher was something else. Satoko was more loquacious than usual. It seems that she was in a great mood. She was flying so high that I thought for a moment about getting a word in to tease her. But she was the leading actress today, so I decided not to bully her at all. As I watched Satoko, going at things as lively as usual under the sun, it struck me that it didn't quite line up with the pleasant time I had spent with her. But both of those were the real Satoko. I didn't care which it was, her smiling happily or making a big lively fuss like this. Just as long as she would keep smiling like this forever.
楽しそうですね。あんなにはしゃいで。
The coach had approached me from behind before I had realized it. As he gazed at Satoko from afar, like I had been doing, he addressed me. So I could tell he was talking about her.
さとこちゃんの笑顔を見てると、なんだか心が洗われる気がしません。
Don't talk about my soul, coach. He smiled, refreshed, searching for confirmation. I felt a little embarrassed to admit it, so against my better judgment, I played it off.
そうですか？あいつの笑顔じゃ皿一枚ろくに洗えないと思うんですけどね。
それを聞いたら、さとこちゃん怒るんでしょうね。でも、そんな彼女もとってもキュートなんですよ。
Leaving her cuteness aside, I could understand him thinking Satoko getting angry for being teased would be funny.
イリアさんでしたっけ？
Isn't it Irie?
入江です。でも、みんな監督って呼びますからね。前原さんも監督と呼んでくださるととても嬉しいです。
As he said that, Coach Irie smiled, blushing a little.
監督はサトコのことを気に入ってるみたいですね。
I didn't have any real basis for saying that. It was just what I felt to be true. Is it like a creepy type of vibe though?
ええ、気に入っていますよ。大好きです。
That's creepy.
彼女がもっと大きくなったら求婚しようと思ってます。
I'm calling the cops. This fucking guy right here really says some insane stuff, doesn't he? After being astonished by this, I hurried to put my mind back in order. I had heard that this coach guy was the kind of person who said crazy things out of nowhere. According to Mion, if I took everything he said seriously, I physically wouldn't be able to take it. If I was able to ignore that part of him, he seemed like he would be a really funny guy. Nope.
あれ？今前原さん驚かれました？
That you're a fucking pedophile? Yeah.
じゃあひょっとしてさとこちゃんのこと狙っています？
I ain't going after nobody, sir.
それは困ります。
Every single motherfucker in this joint is crazy.
私はもう何十年も前から狙ってるんですよ。
監督、何十年も前にはまだサトコは生まれてないと思うんですけど。
ん
Interesting. Coach gave a dry grin and laughed. Was this how I should be doing it? I must somehow master the art of responding to this coach motherfucker. After that, I received many words of praise for my actions, almost too many in fact. As that conversation was happening, leaving aside the controversial statements this coach person would spout suddenly, I learned he was very composed and not a bad guy by any stretch.
俺なんかよりあの特大アーチを放ったサトコの方が正直あいつにホームランを打てるなんて思わなかったです。
さとこちゃんのお兄さんはどちらかというとおとなしい文系のタイプでした。
What do you know about him?
きっとさとこちゃんはその反対の才能に恵まれたんでしょう。
Her brother? Right, he meant Satoshi, right? The one who left Satoko and ran away from home. Satoko's Nini. Hojo. Satoshi Hojo.
ご存知ないですか？
I don't.
さとこちゃんのお兄さんです。
Enlighten me.
北条聡くんと言いまして、彼もHinamizawaファイターズで活躍してたんですよ。もっともっと活躍してほしかったんですが、転校してしまいましてね。
Where?
へえ、そうなんですか。
So he quote unquote transferred, huh? Yeah, maybe that was a little more considerate than saying he ran away. Now that he mentioned it, I think it was Rena. I think she said Satoshi transferred too. Yeah, in Arc 1. I didn't know the details of him having run away from home at the time, so I didn't pay much attention to it, but...
兄貴だけ転校したんでしたっけ？そういうのって珍しいですね。
Everyone having fun was far away and their cheerful voices distant. The chorus of the cicadas separated us from them, giving me a sense of distance. At first, I thought my own voice was too soft for even me to hear. But for a really long time, Coach didn't respond to my words. So at this point, I began to wonder if I had said something I shouldn't have. Just when I began to feel impatient, Coach finally spoke.
不幸なことがあったんです。
Tell me more.
いろいろと。
After informing me that what he was about to say was a secret, Coach began to talk, a little at a time.
もう3年になります。ちょうど今頃の時期でしたっけ。さとこちゃんのご両親が事故に遭われましてね。
事故？
ええ、旅先の公園で展望台から転落されましてね。
Okay. This lines up with one of the cases that happened annually. It was supposed to just be a little time away from the house with the family. They went for a walk on a path through a nature park after it had rained, right? There was a little viewing platform that looked like it had a good view. That was the stage on which the tragedy was set. The metal fixtures in the viewing platform fence had deteriorated from time, and with all the rain they had just gotten, they might have loosened somewhat. Right before Satoko's eyes, both the fence and her parents fell. There was a river some tens of meters below. The water level was high due to the rain, and apparently very muddy.
それで両親は？
Coach gave a thin but melancholic smile and touched his paper cup to his lips. Without saying anything, I knew how unfortunate that accident was and how Satoko's parents had left on an eternal vacation.
じゃあサトコって
I was so focused on being careful with my words that I lost what I was going to say. A single word, orphaned. I knew how little consideration it showed and how much it would hurt Satoko without having to say it aloud, right? Come to think of it, Satoko lived with Rika-chan. At least, that's what I thought I heard from the others. Wait, Rika-chan, her father died from illness too, and her mother soon after. I felt like I heard she was living by herself.
ええ、今はフルデさんと一緒に生活しています。二人ともご両親がいなくて心細い日もあったでしょうが、親の庇護なく生きていくっていうのはあの年頃にはとても辛いことだと思います。
I bet.
前原さんでもその辺はわかるでしょ。
Why? I've only survived because I rely on my parents, so the only reply I could give was to nod.
フルデさんは特に村のお年寄りに慕われていますからね。この村にいる限り生きていくのにそんなに不自由はないでしょう。
そういえばそうですね。リカちゃんって村のマスコットみたいなところがありますからね。確かにこの村での生活には困らないように思います。
Rika-chan could go meep just once and get 2 or 3 croquettes from a vendor after all. So without Rika-chan in the picture, Satoko would have a pretty tough time living here though, right? Because she's not as beloved? I felt like if she asked for help, everyone in the village would.
でもそれはフルデさんだけの特別。サトコちゃんも同じというわけではありません。
Rika being so spoiled was just an exception. Upon thinking about it normally, living on your own as a child should be fraught with difficulty. It wasn't, then, very difficult to imagine how much suffering Satoko had to go through just to live. It wasn't very difficult to imagine at all. Was I really thinking that? Nah, I was only thinking the words. I couldn't imagine it in the slightest. How was I supposed to imagine it when I saw that annoying smile of hers? There was no way I could. I found out she was living apart from her brother, and I kind of just vaguely thought that it was rather unfortunate. I mean, Satoko was smiling so energetically every single day. Was I thinking that her smiling meant that she wasn't hurt? That she didn't feel lonely? When she found out my parents were coming home the other night, Satoko said, "A family sitting around the dinner table is the most fun way to enjoy a meal of all." Those words held a lot more weight now.
あの子を養子に迎えようと本気で思ったこともあります。
養子？
It's a secret. After warning me, Coach put his index finger to his lips.
私はこの年になるまで本当に堅実に生活してきました。財産もあるし信用もあります。ですが結婚だけはしてない。法律で既婚者でないと 養子は取れないって決まってるんですよ。だから私は聡子ちゃんを養子にしてあげられないんです。残念です。聡子ちゃんにパパって呼んでもらえる計画は早くも頓挫ですから。
This guy spouts some crazy shit. At first, I was only half listening, but midway through, I realized how rude that was. This coach person seriously only wished for this one girl, Satoko, to be happy. That was neither crazy nor was it nonsense. He just wanted her to be happy. Those were his true feelings.
聡子ちゃんの今の生活は決して幸福なものではないでしょう。でもね、それをほんの少しでも和らげてあげたいと思ってるんです。もっとも余り物のお裾分けや力仕事のお手伝いくらいしかしてあげられませんがね。
幸せですよ、聡子。
Huh? Coach showed surprise at my having declared that.
こんなにも聡子の幸せを強く願う人間がこんなに身近にいて不幸なわけがありません。
I spoke with a serious expression, quietly but firmly all the same. It was my approval of his feelings and my gratitude as Satoko's Nini.
ありがとう。でも聡子ちゃんには内緒にしてくださいね。彼女、私が養子にしたいなんて知ったら、こんなスケベ男なんか誰がパパと呼ぶものですかって憤慨しそうですから。
Rightfully fucking so, sir. I wonder. Satoko may have been somewhat childish, but she was still able to empathize with people. She would call him that. I knew it. As if my feelings had gotten across, Coach grinned, satisfied, and returned his gaze to the hustle and bustle before us. Her parents and her older brother. She lost her family, had no relatives, and was huddled up with Rika-chan, who was in the same situation. Satoko Hojo. It wouldn't be odd for her to look at her life with despair, but she didn't seem to feel that way. She lived energetically with a smile.
あの子にはね、いつまでも笑っていてほしいんです。
It was a naive wish, and yet it was one that he couldn't help hoping for. So, the words that I spoke were the same.
奇遇ですね。俺も同じことを考えています。
おや、前原くんもですか？では私たちは仲間ですね。
No, the fuck it does not.
約束しましょう。
約束？
It's a very simple one. The coach said this, giving me a grin.
絶対に彼女を泣かせたりしない。
It was short and to the point.
あ、はい。俺もそれ約束します。
Coach nodded happily. We exchanged no more words after that. We just sat there comfortably, gazing at Satoko and everyone else having a good time. She had certainly lost family, but there were still people watching over her. How reassuring that must have been.
仮にですよ、聡子を養子にできたらどうします？
それは難しい質問ですね。
Coach gave a wry, happy smile, then exaggeratedly tilted his head in contemplation.
まずですね、私のことをご主人様と呼ばせて優しく可憐なメイドにします。
Shion?
はあ？
How does this guy always pick the craziest time to say the craziest things? What?
前原くん、私まだ何も言ってませんよ。
何言ってんですか？今はっきりと言ったじゃないですか。
Wow.
そうそう。聡子を自分専属のプリッチーなメイドにするってはっきり言いました。
Hold the fuck up! What?
ああ、それはいいですね。
Yo! Y'all go into jail.
聡子ちゃんをプリチー。
Put both of you motherfuckers underneath the jail.
あ、プリティとプリッチーは似てるようで微妙に違いますからね。日本のわびさびをミックスした和洋折衷の言葉なので注意してください。
なるほどな。いやー、日本語はほんと奥が深いよな。
What? Keiichi, what? Bro, what did they put in my juice?
そうそう、ケイちゃんはよく理解してます。ではそういうことで。
My hand shot out and grabbed Shion, smiling, waving, and about to leave by the nape of her neck.
おい待てこら、突然現れて何をとんでもないことを言ってやがるんだ。
とんでもないことって言ったら、ケイちゃんと監督がしてたさとこラブなトークの方がよっぽどとんでもないと思いましたけど、養子縁組のあたりから再現してご覧に入れます？
お前そんな時から息を潜めていやがったのか。
お姉にすらかなわないケイちゃんが私に歯向かおうなんて100年早いってことです。
Interesting choice of words. This was Shion Sonozaki, the younger of the Sonozaki twins. Though she hadn't a scrap of the reserved quality you would expect from a little sister, she was a villain no better than her older sister Mion. We met the other day in town and I dug myself into a hole when I mistook her for Mion. Unlike Mion, Shion said she was living in Okinomiya, so I thought we would never see each other again, but to think that we actually would. My frankly displeased expression didn't change a bit either. This must be what people mean when they say something is like water off a duck's back.
シオンさん、よく来てくれましたね。来てくれないと思ってがっかりしてたんですよ。
まあ他にすることが思いつかなかったってことです。ちょっとからかいに行こうかなくらいですので。
監督、どうしてシオンが戦勝祝賀会に呼ばれなくちゃなんないんです？こいつがどうチームの勝利に貢献したっていうのか。
それはですね、実は私がHinamizawaファイターズのマネージャーだからなんです。
マネージャー？嘘だろ。そんならなんで昨日の試合にいなかったんだよ。
マネージャーはマネージャーでも幽霊マネージャーですから。てへ。
She seemed to think that I would forgive her if she stuck her tongue out like that and smiled. She wasn't sorry at all.
シオンちゃんが来てくれないと試合に花がないんです。
This fucking guy right here.
練習までとは言いませんから、試合にくらいまた昔みたいに応援に来てくれませんかね。
This guy's an uber creep, dude.
まあ考えておきます。ケイちゃんがHinamizawaファイターズに移籍するんなら考えてもいいかな。私かっこいい男の子がいないと応援する張り合いがないんです。
Did Shion just smoothly say something absurd?
シオン、あんたまだどこから湧いて出たの？
Suddenly Mion came running over, latched onto my shoulders and pulled me towards her.
あー、みーちゃんの妹さんだ。しーちゃん、こんにちは。
レナさん、こんにちは。まだ1回しか会ってないのに名前を覚えてもらって光栄です。
あ、こちらこそ。レナの名前を覚えててくれてありがとう。
そんな挨拶はどうでもいいの。ケイちゃんの勧誘なんてダメだからね。ケイちゃんは我が部のホープなんだから、野球なんかに引っこ抜かないで。
Mion gave a low growl as she grappled my arm. She looked like a little girl desperately clinging on to her toy. Like a toy that you did not give her in Arc 2?
ケイチ君はうちの部活の期待の新人なの。だからトレードとかは全然ダメなんだよ。
Rena's smile hid a nonchalant bloodthirst. She was blocking Shion's way, ready to unleash an ultimate attack if she got within 2 meters of me. I felt like this was gonna turn into a bloody battle.
それは残念です。じゃあ交渉はまたの機会に。あんたに交渉権なんかないの？監督、なんでシオンまで呼んだわけ？シオンは丸1年もサボってる幽霊部員じゃない。
シオンちゃんがいると賑やかになって楽しいかなって思ったんですけどね。実に賑やかになりました。
That was what he planned for all along. Mission accomplished, sir.
ほら、 ケイちゃんおいでおいで。みんなでゲームやるよ。もちろん罰ゲーム付きでね。
しーちゃんもどう？ルールは簡単だし楽しいよ。
私が参加すると勝っちゃいますから。お姉の部長としての面目を潰しちゃうと悪いですし。
Mion, now irritated, turned around with a glare.
なんですお姉。私も一緒に参加して姉妹対決にした方がいいですか？多分やめといた方がお姉のためだと思いますけど。あかんべー。塩なんか混ぜてやらない。仲間外れ。べーだ。
Oh, Mion just avoided a direct confrontation. It seemed like the twins were completely incompatible with each other.
混ぜてあげないの？みーちゃんとの対決見たかったかな？
私シオン嫌い。
Damn, tell him how you really feel.
あいつと戦うのは苦手なの。
An angry Mion dragged me away. Slide.
頑張ってくださいね。ここで応援してますから。ケイちゃんファイト。おう。
Thanks, Rika-chan. Xian waved her hand at us, reveling in the bliss of teasing Mion. Alright. Club activities had begun, which meant I needed to clear my mind. What was today's battle? Today's punishment game? I would take anything on.
ほらほらケイさん、覚悟なさいませよ。今日は徹底的に行きますわよ。
おう上等だぜ。さとこだろうと誰だろうと手加減無用でぶっ潰してやるぜ。
そこをレナは漁夫のりで優勝だよ。僕はそれに小判ザメで優勝を狙いますです。はう、リカちゃんが小判ザメみたいにペター。ほん持ち帰り。
よしみんな、今日は大人数だから簡単で分かりやすいゲームにしよう。今日のゲームはね、
Everyone who lost the game dropped out and had to help clean up after the barbecue. Xion laughed more uproariously than anyone I had ever heard when she saw my loser face. Okay, was my getting bombed out of the game really that fucking funny?
いやいや、あの時のケイちゃんの顔。お前らそれでも人間かよみたいな。
How can you still call yourselves human?
ちくしょう。長期の買い占めまでは作戦通りだったのに、あそこでサトコとリカちゃんの裏切りさえなければ。
It was going great while we had maintained a united front, but Satoko had been quicker to betray me than I her. She was just a tiny bit better than me. Ah.
だから北条を信じちゃいけないって警告したんですよ。
Tomita-kun and Okumura-kun were unanimously wearing I told you so faces. Incidentally, those two were victims of Satoko's traps pretty early on as well.
さあ、富田君たちの分まで頑張るつもりだったのにな。
And once again, for the showdown, it did not matter. Maybe this meant I still couldn't match up to the other team members yet.
で、部活メンバーの最下位には何か罰ゲームがあるってことになってるんじゃなかったでしたっけ？
Xion remarked, as though forcing me to recall something I had tried to forget, even for a moment.
そうだったかな。
そういえば前原さん、委員長と罰ゲームを決めるときかなり熱くなってましたけど。
さっきお姉にエンジェルモートの制服を調達してくれって頼まれたんですけど。
Oh no.
それと何か関係あります？できる限り大きめのサイズでって言われたんですけど。
Tomita-kun and Okumura-kun were giving me these complex, indescribable looks mixing empathy, pity, and the desire to see something scary all at once. All I could do now was laugh. Strangely enough, the more I laughed, the more I felt like it was actually funny. Ah! I lost!
あれあれ前原さん、どうしちゃったんですか？
Fuck, it's the pervert, dude.
笑ったり泣いたり吠えたり。
いいんです。あれは嫌がってるふりのジェスチャーなんです。
I'm sorry, what?
罰ゲームを口実に得られる貴重な経験に興奮を隠せないだけなんです。ねえ。
何が貴重な経験とは。
I held my head in my hands in agony. My state of mind could only be summed up with a 3-letter word. It was... son of a bitch. Sob. Code gently put his hands on my shoulders. Was he comforting me?
前原さん、苦境を受け入れなければならない時はですね。
What?
厳しい指導を受けているメイドであると想像するんです。
Bro, what happened? Did I just get like a fan translation or some shit? Is this like a fan fiction or something?
ほら、絶望的なシチュエーションがなんだか楽しそうになってきませんか？
Get your bitch ass hands off me, son.
いいじゃないですか。
Anybody wanna take over this LP now? Red in the face and indulging in his imagination, still holding my shoulders, Coach said, "Yeah, that shit," and started twirling around like a fucking ballerina, dude. I had to wonder what kind of word associations he had going on in his head. At the very least, it was much different than what was in mine. The first thing that comes to my mind when I think of domestication certainly isn't maids.
富田君、岡村君、君たちの監督は実に面白いな。こんなのでよく監督が務まるな。
Tomita-kun and Okumura-kun exchanged glances and answered with dry smiles. Then they added he was really a nice person most of the time, which is something you would normally say about a person like that. The coach's questionable revolution slowed to a stop, and then his expression returned to a clear, calm one, almost making what just happened seem like an illusion. This motherfucker can switch gears way too fast.
では、お片付けを続けましょう。前原さんは力持ちみたいですからね。プレートを水場に持って行って洗っていただけますか？
了解です。
I hoisted the dirty barbecue plates, each with slimy oil clinging to it, and looked for the wash basins. These were heavy. Where the fuck are the wash basins? Over there? Figuring I should make it there before my arms gave out, I headed towards it at a trot. A lot of the adults who had been helping out were using the wash basins, so I gave up and looked for a different set. I asked them and they told me there were more right by the assembly hall too, so I headed that way instead. Rather than multiple basins, there was just a faucet one here. I initially thought it would be too small to wash plates as big as these, but it probably would still be faster than waiting for a faucet to open up back there. I turned the faucet and water much nicer looking than it gushed forth. I asked so many ways to say what you just wrote there, but you chose this? This is what you landed on, dog? I put a plate under the faucet and scrubbed it with my hand to try and rub it clean. It didn't go very well.
はい。スポンジとクレンザー。そんなの水だけで洗ったって無理です。
It was Shion. She threw a brand new sponge in a container filled with cleaner to me.
お、サンキュー。
そんなの洗い場に置いて大人たちに任せちゃえばいいのに。つくづくケイちゃんっていい人です。
I got the feeling that it wasn't quite a compliment. I answered her with a forced smile.
シオンがHinamizawaファイターズのマネージャーだったなんてそういうのはめんどくさがってやらないやつだと思ってた。
ええ、めんどくさいですよ。ですから今は完全に幽霊ですけどね。
監督、帰ってきてほしいって言ってたじゃないか。たまには帰ってきてやれよ。
まあ気が向いたら。
Shion made it sound like the end of the world could happen before she quote-unquote felt like it. Whoops. I couldn't keep washing the dishes while preoccupied with conversation, so I decided to take my task seriously. Shion neither offered to help nor got in my way. She just quietly watched the water flowing from the faucet.
そうそう、聞きましたよ。
Oh yeah?
昨日の試合、ケイちゃんが大活躍したそうじゃないですか。
I guess you could say that.
褒めるなら俺よりもホームランを決めたサトコの方だろう。あいつ運動神経良かったんだな。俺驚いたよ。
サトシ君とは大違いです。きっと運動神経は妹に全部取られちゃったに違いないですね。
Shion smiled as she spoke, her eyes looking at something far away, betraying her reminiscence.
サトシ君？
北条サト子の兄です。北条サトシ君。あ、そっか。ケイちゃんって今年引っ越してきたんでしたっけ？なら会ったことありませんね。
I was a little surprised that Shion knew about Satoshi.
会ったことはないけど少しは知ってるよ。確か両親が亡くなった後転校したんだよな。
I avoided saying that he ran away from home and used the slightly more vague words that everyone else did.
転校？誰がそんなこと言ったんですか？
I hadn't yet realized that Shion's tone had changed slightly. Uh-oh.
いや誰って？
Bro, you gotta cover your six, bro.
誰だっけかな。誰かに聞いたんだよ。転校したって。
その誰かって誰ですか？
Uh-oh.
誰かに聞いたから言ってるんですよね、転校って。
誰に聞いたかなんてよく覚えてないよ。転校だって言うならそれでいいだろう。別に問題があるわけじゃないし。
ありますよ。転校届が出されたわけですか？学校とかに。それを誰かが見た？それとも聞いた？
Around that time, I not only noticed how awfully caught up on this Shion was, but also how startlingly dangerous her eyes had begun to look.
シオン、なんだよお前。目がマジだぞ。
With that, Shion seemed to realize the expression she was making. She took a deep breath, pretended to fix her hair, and went back to her composed expression from before.
すみません。でもケイちゃん、よく知りもしないでサトシ君のこと、転校とか言わないでください。本当にお願いしますね。
I realized I must have said something I shouldn't have, but I wasn't immediately sure of what I should apologize for, so I just said one safe word for now. Sorry.
なんとなく転校と聞かされて、そうだと信じてたんだよ。じゃあ実際は違うのか？
It was, of course. Preceded by his parents, he had left his sister and run away. But I had wanted to try and avoid using the words run away, so I pretended not to know. Upon seeing my flustered reply, Shion realized that she was intimidating me and lowered her voice.
すみません。別にケイちゃんを責めてるわけじゃないんで、ちょっと言葉がきつすぎましたね。謝ります。
別に気にしてないよ。
That was a fib. I was actually a little scared even. Was there something wrong with saying he ran away? Was there some sort of misunderstanding in saying that he transferred? But before I could ask her, she turned on her heel to leave.
おい、シオン。
じゃあ頑張ってください。ケイちゃんのプレートで最後みたいですよ。洗い物。
Her final remark reminded me of the dishes I had so easily forgotten about. So immersed in conversation were we that it got pretty late. I turned the faucet again to get the water flowing faster again. I violently scrubbed the plate. When I turned back around, Shion was no longer there. By the time I had finished washing the plates, most of the other things had been cleaned up. The air had cooled off before I had realized it, and as the heat that stuck with us all day dispersed, a nice breeze started to blow. Coach got everyone together to make his closing remarks. And with that, another fun day drew to its close. In the end, Mion ended the game with a magnificent victory. Satoko and Rika-chan, who had labored so hard to betray me, had fallen into a huge trap afterwards, leaving them frustrated about more than a few things.
人を裏切るやつはいつか自分も裏切られる。いい見本だな。
そんなこと圭一さんに言われたくありませんわ。レナは誰の口車にも乗らなかったからね。2位になれたんだよ。レナはなかなか嘘に引っかからないのです。
Believe me, I know.
勘がいいのですよ。
I'm surprised. She seems like she would fall for the first light to come her way.
それを言ったらケイちゃんでしょ。他人を食い物にしてやろうと欲張って真っ先に自分が食い物に。友達を紹介すれば紹介するほど高収入なんてバカな商法に引っかかるんじゃないよ。
へいへい、努力しますよ。とほほほ。
Even good friends will lay traps mercilessly and betray everyone in sight once they get into a serious enough game. But despite that, once it's all over, they can feel refreshed and laugh together. It reminded me of how we were all such great friends.
それよりもケイチさんの罰ゲームが楽しみでございますわね。でも本当に実現できますの？店長さんもそんなの嫌だって言うと思いましたよ。どうだろう。ケイチくんすっごく可愛くなるかも。見てみたいかも。僕もとても楽しみなのですよ。転ばせてフキフキをさせますです。
ああ、それはいいね。
Y'all fucked up.
なぜここ一番で俺は勝てないんだ。今日は絶対に勝ちたい。この罰ゲームは誰かにやらせてみたいと思うといつも負ける。足りないのか。勝利への信念が足りないのか。うわ
敗者の嘆きは蜜の味ですわね。かわいそなのです。ケイチくんもこうやって強くなっていくんだね。去年のみーちゃんを見てるみたい。
Mi-chan last year? What, did she always lose and moan about it in the past? How very interesting. I did not know our undefeated president Mion was once like that.
余計なことは言わなくていいの。
Mion hastily covered Rena's mouth. Everyone watching burst out laughing. Finally, Rika-chan pulled on Satoko's sleeve.
さて、僕たちはそろそろ行かないといけないのです。お夕飯のお買い物に行かないといけませんわね。
I wanted to keep talking like this forever, but it was getting late. We split up with Satoko and Rika-chan and decided to get on our way home.
じゃあまた明日。学校で会おうね。
Everyone waved to each other and split up for the short time between now and tomorrow.
じゃあ行こう。
We began walking down the tall staircase leading from the shrine grounds. As the sun started to set and the afternoon's heat began to disappear as though it were never there. Shut the fuck up. Just listening to the chorus of the Higurashi was enough to make me forget about how hot it had been today.
そういえばまだ6月なんだよね。今年は梅雨とか全然ないでいきなり夏みたいな感じだね。
Now that I thought about it, she was right. It was June, the season of long rain, of hydrangeas and snails. I haven't seen a real rainy season since transferring here.
週間予報による
I
と
did.
週明けあたりからはもうちょっと梅雨らしい天気になるら
One
しいよ。
particular evening, with a certain particular character, club member, standing outside my window.
大雨注意とか言ってたから。綿流しにぶつからなきゃいいんだけど。
そうなんだ。やっぱり梅雨は梅雨らしい方がいいよね。
Shut the fuck up!
レナは梅雨の長雨って結構好きだよ。
長雨なんて気がめいるだけだって。ねえケイちゃん。
ああ。
I was a little spaced out, so I was late in answering Mion. I was thinking back to my conversation with her sister. When I said that Satoshi transferred, Shion clearly got angry. She was mad at me for saying something so careless. I mean, it may have been a vague way of skirting around the fact that he ran away from home, but I don't think it was so bad that Shion would feel the need to be mad about it. I wasn't really satisfied with it. I felt like a child, completely ignorant of what he was being scolded for. So my thoughts spilled out of my mouth in a very direct fashion.
サトコに兄貴っていたよな。サトシって名前だっけ？
As soon as I said the name Satoshi, Rena and Mion both lost their relaxed, comfortable mood and made strange expressions. Should I have avoided talking about this? That's what they made me think. But I've already said it, so that's that. And I would be lying if I said I wasn't interested.
サトシってどうしたんだっけ？引っ越したんだっけ？
That was such a transparent way of putting it, but in my desire to know everything, I feigned ignorance. Mion turned around and looked to Rena for assistance. Rena looked between us, then quietly and softly spoke.
あれ言わなかったかな転校しちゃったんだよ
Oh, did he now? When I said those words to Shion, she got upset. So I answered her with the same words that Shion had given me.
転校って誰がそんなことを言ったんだよ。
Uh-oh. I had only intended to borrow Shion's words, but I said it exactly the same way she had, right down to the thorns in my voice. When I realized what I had done, I immediately tried to soften my remark.
本当に転校したなら転校届とかが学校に提出されるはずだろ。でもそんなの実際には出てないんじゃないのか？
Mion and Rena, their eyes grew wide. They were at a loss for words. I started to feel like I was doing something really bad. I thought they were only hiding the fact that Satoko's older brother ran away out of consideration for her, right?
別に二人を責めてるわけじゃないんだぜ。ただサトシはどうしたのかなって聞いてみてるだけのつもりで。
I wasn't trying to blame them. The fact that I had to remind them even looked like I was tormenting them with an impossible question. Nah, maybe I was actually bullying them. Maybe I had lashed out of them in retaliation for Shion's getting mad at me. This whole day had been so much fun, but now? Why did I go and say something that made all of that meaningless? I couldn't help but regret my own careless curiosity. That's enough. Let's drop it now. As I was about to say that, Mion spoke up.
別に隠そうとか騙そうとかそういうつもりじゃないのを分かってほしいんだけど。
Mion's tone conveyed her genuine awkwardness. They sounded like the excuses of a child who had been presented with evidence of her own mischief.
サトシは転校したわけじゃないんだよ。
Mion said, resigning herself. But I felt bad for pushing her to say that. So, it's okay, Mion. Let's stop talking about Satoshi. Sorry for teasing you. I wanted to apologize. But right before that...
帰ってこないの
Unlike Mion's stammered reply, Mion was extremely clear and resolute.
帰ってこないって。
ある日から家に帰ってこないの
He won't come back. Now that was a very strange way of putting it. Normally you would say that he hadn't come back yet. At least I thought you would say it like Rena did if he wasn't capable of coming back. You wouldn't say it like that when talking about someone who ran away from home.
帰ってこないってどういう意味だよ。じゃあサトシはどこへ行ったんだよ。
知らない
Rena's word choice felt very cold to me. So does your word choice sometimes, game. It was so cold that I couldn't muster up a response right away.
だからさ、レナの言う通りなんだよ。ある日を境にサトシは家に帰ってこなかった。
Mion noticed the deadlock between us and hurriedly followed up on what Rena had said.
まあ村中みんなで探したし、警察も方々を探してくれたよ。それで家出じゃないかって話になってさ。
家出じゃないかって話になって。
When running away from home, I thought you were supposed to leave a note or something. So when Satoshi ran away, he would probably have left some kind of letter apologizing to Satoko. That was just kind of what I figured. But from the way Mion was talking, it seemed a little different than just running away from home.
警察の人が調べたらさ、サトシってバイトとかでコツコツとお金を貯めててさ、それをいなくなった日に全部下ろしてたのが分かったんだよ。で、名古屋駅だかでサトシによく似た人が目撃されたとかで。
He withdrew all of his savings to fund his escape from home. Was that it? It seemed consistent enough to me, but before I could say anything...
私はそんなの嘘だと思う。サトシ君は家出なんかじゃない。
ちょっと待てよ。転校したわけでもなく、引っ越したわけでもなく、それで家出したわけでもないなら、一体サトシはどうして？
やめなよ、レナ。
Mion whispered to her. Rena, however, continued without interruption, and then she said this.
だってこれはお社様のたたりだもの。
Well, that's the point of no return. Everything's gonna go tits up now.
たたり？
It took some time before I understood what Rena meant by that. Mion clicked her tongue and shook her head a little.
サトシ君は消える前に私に教えてくれた。
And her eyes just went crazy.
誰かに見張られている。後をつけられている。
You, right?
家の中にまでついてくる。
Am I Satoshi?
寝るとき枕元に立って見下ろしてるって教えてくれた。
やめなよ、レナ。
それは間違いなくお社様のたたりの前兆。きっとサトシ君は心のどこかでHinamizawaを捨てて逃げ出そうという気持ちがあったんだと思う。それをお社様は許さなかった。
だからやめなって。
Is she Oyashiro-sama?
お社様はHinamizawaの守り神様。Hinamizawaを捨てて逃げ出そうとする人を絶対に許さない。
He or she?
私はそれを謝った。でもサトシ君はきっと謝らなかった。だから。
Oh, interesting. Let me see the sprite right here. Oh!
お社様のたたりに会ってしまったに。
お社様のたたりだって？
Actually, this is pretty fucking terrifying. I hadn't intended to repeat it, but the words came out of my mouth anyway. Oyashiro-sama's curse.
警察が家出だって決めつけたって信じない信じない。そんなのたたりだと認めたくない村の偉い人たちが決めただけの嘘っぱち。お社様のたたりは信じようと信じまいと確かに。
Mion struck Rena in the head. And not in a joking way either.
いい加減にしろって言ってるでしょ。恩和の私でも島には怒るよ。
Pushing her to her limits. Actually, there was plenty of displeasure and anger in Mion's face at that moment. For a few moments after being hit, Rena looked astonished. Perhaps the voices of Higurashi calmed her frantic mind, because after a little while, she regained her original calm expression. We arrived at the place we always split up with Mion. No one said a word until we got there. The voices of the Higurashi just tortured our ears with their buzzing. We had always split up with Mion here, just leaving Rena and me.
あのさ、ケイちゃん。前に漫画化すって約束したじゃない？よかったら寄ってく？
Huh? She promised that? However, I quickly realized that was a convenient way of saying she wanted to talk to me alone.
あ、そうなんだ。じゃあ レナは先に帰ってるね。
Maybe she realized it, maybe she didn't. Thankfully, Rena quickly said she would go home before us.
じゃあねレナ、また明日。
うん。また明日ね。ケイチくんもあまりお邪魔しすぎないようにね。もう夕方だから。
ちょっと本を借りに寄るだけだよ。じゃあな。
Considering the fun day we had, it was a very insipid, lonely parting.
さっきのあまり気にしないでね。
After a little while, Mion finally spoke. Quite some time had passed since splitting up with Rena.
いや別に俺の方が悪かったと思う。
サトシの話は別に隠してたわけじゃないんだよ。あまり触れない方がいい話だからさ。
At this point, I understood exactly what she meant by that. Judging by our odd interactions with Rena, I understood so well it hurt that I shouldn't ever talk about it again. Actually, if that was the case, then with Shion too. Nah, this is a bigger problem. Talking about it in the first place had been indiscreet. I shouldn't have been interested in it at all. But that's why I really had to think about it. About why everyone got so irritated. Idiot, stop this, Keiichi Maibara. By the time I had tried to warn myself, I had accidentally spoken already.
もう二度と聞かないからさ、正直なところを教えてくれないか。一体サトシに何があったんだ。家でなんだろう。
For a long time, Mion remained silent, but finally, unable to endure it any longer, she began to speak timidly.
お社様のたたりの話は聞いたこと。
ほんの少しくらいなら。
I got the gist of it. I only overheard someone in class talking about it, though. Oyashiro-sama was the name of the deity protecting Hinamizawa that they worship at the shrine we had the barbecue at today. And a few years ago, when they started talking about flooding Hinamizawa as a part of the dam project, one of the people who worked on site died or something, and people blamed it on the Oyashiro-sama's curse. That's how it was.
サトシの死んだ親ってのがさ、ダムの誘致派でね。
え？ひなみ沢の人って村中でダムに反対してたんじゃないのか？村人なのにダムの賛成派もいたのか？
The dam project that would flood the entirety of Hinamizawa. I had heard the village got all together to fight the terrible project, but it was a little hard to believe there were villagers who were supporting it.
まあ、いろいろと事情もあってね。ダム計画に反対する人ばかりでもなかったんだけどさ。で、その親ってのが誘致派のリーダー格だったんだよ。
誘致派のリーダー格。つまりサトコとサトシの親がってことだよな。
うん。国はダム工事に伴って多額の保証金を用意してたからね。そのお金が欲しくてダム計画に賛成してた人たちも結構いたんだよ。
Aside from a few households, Hinamizawa was, in general, not very affluent. And not because they were proud to inherit the land of their ancestors. Inherit? Inherent? What? It wouldn't be strange if some people wanted enough money to start a new life. But even in that case, they would have had to hesitate to say so given the situation. It just happened to be Satoko and Satoshi's parents who understood that and stood up to be their representative. By that standard, you might say Satoko and Satoshi's parents were very heroic. They volunteered to be hated, all to help those without much money who didn't have a voice.
それで運悪くその両親がさ、お社様を祀るお祭りの日に事故死しちゃったんだよね。それでお社様のたたりにあったんじゃないかってことになっちゃったわけ。
I thought back to what Coach told me today. They went to a nature park on a family outing and fell from a cliff.
で、サトシが家出したのまでお社様のたたりってことにされちまったわけか。
まあ、うん、そんな感じ。
It was a bit of an evasive reply, but I felt it was wrong to ask any further, so I didn't press her for details.
もう説明するまでもないと思うけどさ、聡子にとっては両親の事故もサトシの家出も、そしてお社様のたたりなんて話も愉快な話じゃないのはわかるでしょ。
Yeah, of course I knew. I could only nod silently.
だからさ、私たちは聡子の家族の話には触れないことにしてる。サトシのことは仮に聞かれても転校したってごまかすことにしてる。その辺の事情を汲み取ってもらえるよね。
They wanted to protect Satoko's happiness, her smile. As someone who thought that way once, even for a short time, I really did regret having been imprudent enough to broach the topic to begin with.
ああ、わかるよ。俺も軽はずみなことを聞いたと後悔してる。
When she heard that, Mion smiled, seeming a little relieved. With that understanding, thinking that I should get going, I began to make my way home. I could really have stopped by Mion's house, but it was already late. I would stop by again next time I had the chance.
じゃあな、ミオン。今日は悪かったな。また明日な。
じゃあね。
We waved to each other. Then suddenly remembering something, Mion called out to me.
ケイちゃん、あとさ、聡子にだけじゃなくレナの前でもサトシの話は慎んでくれるかな。
え？
さっきので分かったと思うけどさ、レナってどういうわけかお社様のたたりの話だけは笑い事で済まないんだよ。転校してきた時から。
Yeah. Judging by how Rena was acting earlier, it was clearly no laughing matter to her. Mion had interrupted the conversation for us, but if Mion hadn't been here, what might have happened?
どうしてレナはあんなにマジになるんだろうな。
Not only Rena either, but Shion too.
知らない。レナはね、あ、これ内緒だよ。言ったら絶好だよ。
Mion emphasized this as her expression clouded even further.
言わないよ。で、レナが何だってんだよ。
お社様のたたりに会ったことあるんだって。
え？
私は悪いけど被害妄想過剰な何かの思い込みじゃないかって思ってる。でも本人はそう言ってるし、そう信じてる。茶化すとかなり怒る。レナは普段はちゃらけてるけど怒るとかなり怖い。
レナの前でも言うなってことだろ。サトシの話。
うん。できればこの話題にも二度と触れるべきじゃないと思うね。レナのためにもサトコのためにもさ。
For everyone else's too. And if I must say, for your own sake too, Kei-chan. With her silence, Mion made sure I knew that.
そうだな。うん、わかったよ。
ありがとう。
Saying only that, she waved her hand and began walking away. I watched her go, a little dazed, and then started walking myself. Satoko's older brother Satoshi. Had he run away from home? Or had he been a victim of the curse and disappeared forever? Whichever the case, none of this was anything I should have asked about. The cooling air forced me into self-reflection. I wanted Satoko to smile, yet my curiosity easily defeated me, and I frivolously tried to step into the dark side of things in a joking way. I'm fucking shameful. I wanted today to be exactly like yesterday. I wanted tomorrow to be just as fun as today too. So why did I go ahead and do something like that? We were having a blast at the baseball game yesterday. And today we had a blast at the big barbecue party too. It was a lot of fun. But then I went and almost nullified all of those fun times. I would have to be more careful starting tomorrow. I would put all this unpleasant stuff behind me forever. Like hell I'm gonna let my enjoyable life end because of how careless I was today. But the more I thought that I would be more careful starting tomorrow, the more I couldn't get rid of the ominous thought that I had already put an end to those enjoyable days with what I had just done. Hey, wait. Calm down, Keiichi Maibara. The gears of destiny are freaking gigantic, aren't they? What happened just now was trivial. It doesn't make any sense to think my life will be totally different starting tomorrow. But even though I understood it logically, the mist in my heart wasn't going to fade until tomorrow turned out to be as fun as today.
変だぞ俺。さっきのみんなとのやりとり。ちょっと気にしすぎだぜ。
I wish tomorrow would come already. I wanted to make me understand how absurd my insignificant doubts really were. The night was long.
「シオンさんも少しは手伝ってください」。
女の子に重いものを運ばせようって言うんですか？そんなだからいい年になっても相手が見つからないんですよ、監督は。
ですね、そういうのを曰くこう言います。余計なお世話です。
He was loading the station wagon with heaps of equipment we had used for today's barbecue meeting. All the fathers and sons who had help were starting to get on their way.
さて、シオンさんはあなた、ここまでは何で来ました？自転車でした。積んで送って差し上げますよ。
スクーターだからいいです。お心遣いだけで嬉しいってことにしときます。
今日は来てくれて嬉しかったですよ。やはりマネージャーさんがいないとパッとしませんからね。
まだ私マネージャーなんですか？1年も丸々サボってんだから、こんな無能マネージャーいい加減に解雇するべきだと思いますよ。
シオンさんが辞めたいって自分で言えたらいつでも解雇してあげますよ。
ずるいな。早く解放してくださいよね。試合があるたびに来ないかと電話がかかってくるの、もううざくてかなわないんですから。
シオンちゃんももっともっと素直になれば、とってもキュートで可愛い女の子なのに。お父さんは悲しいですよ。一体どこでねじ曲がってこんなにひねくれてしまったんだか。ああ、お父さんの愛の抱擁で力強く包み込めば目が覚めますか。ほら。
Poach was fooling around with all his might, but Shion just smiled into the distance without responding.
何も変わってない。監督が変な人で、みんなのにぎわいも何も変わってないのに。
サトシ君だけいないとおっしゃりたいのですか。帰ってきますよ。きっと待っている人がいるんですから。
勝手なこと言っててください。
彼も罪作りな人ですよね。こんな可愛い彼女を置き去りにしてどこへ行ってしまったんだか。
Oh, those two were an item?
彼女？もういつまで笑ってるんですか？監督。
Poach bent over and laughed heartily for a little while.
ではまたお会いしましょうね。試合にもたまには応援に来てくださいよ。
まあ気が向いたら。私マネージャーなんか全然もうやる気ないんですから。
いいんですよ。あなたが嫌ならいつでもクビにしてあげますよ。嫌がるのを無理やりってのは私の性分ではありませんからね。
I don't know about that shit.
はいはい。すみませんね。私の負けです。気が向いたらまた応援に来ますので、今日は堪忍してください。
おっと、もうこんな時間。機材返す約束の時間が。先方をもうだいぶ待たせてますね。では今日はこの辺で。 また次の試合でお会いしましょう。
ええ、気が向いたらね。さよなら、監督。
The autopsy suggests the victim was killed in the following manner. 1. The entire body bound in restraints. Traces left behind from when the body seemed to have been bound indicated the usage of a specific restraining table rather than rope or another common method. Finger joints on either hand appear to have been bound especially tightly. Highly likely that the table was either specially made or homemade given this information. 2. Both ears and nose severed with a sharp blade. Traces of the restraint and other things seem to suggest that there was at least one more other than the one who had severed these body parts holding down the victim's head. Fuck's sake. Possible that multiple blades were used, with one of them most likely being scissors or shears. 3. 5 nails penetrated fingers on each hand. One long nail stuck in each joint of each finger on each hand for a total of 30. The deceased fingers were nailed to wooden planks 20 square centimeters large. Extremely likely these planks were part of the restraining table. In addition, it is likely that the table was originally designed for just a purpose. 4. Abdomen incised, intestines removed. The incision in the abdomen is likely to have been technique grounded in medical methodology using a sharp blade. Estimated there was still no threat to the victim's life at this stage. After this, the organs inside the incision were dismantled and removed. The victim likely died as a result of this process. 5. Body disposed. After fastening a dumbbell to the victim's neck using a commercial pet collar, the victim was likely abandoned in the Ouija River's third drain. Judging by the dumbbell's weight, it's highly possible that they would have needed at least 3 grown men to have disposed of the body. To Oishi-san, here's a copy of the preliminary autopsy of the slaughtered corpse in the Ouija River. Chief Shigeharu sees this as having possible relation to the S group. What are your thoughts, Oishi-san?
出ましたね、ロンチュンドラさん、マンガンです。
What?
なんすかそれ。なんでドラが3つも入んすか。
バカモンが大石がテンパイしたの分かっててカンドラ増やしよってからに自業自得じゃぞ。
チュンさらしたらドラを上乗せするぐらいしかやることないじゃないですか。厄介さらしたらドラそばは切っちゃダメですよ。
Oishi grinned meaningfully as his buddies, swearing, began breaking down the walls and reforming them.
時に大石さんどうですか。なんじゃい。ああ、例のドブ川惨殺死体の話かの。何か手がかりはあったのか。
ねえ、まあ裏はそっちで取ってくださいよ。
さすが。何者です仏。
間宮里奈、本名は律子。
シボネフラワーロードにあるブルーマーメイドってキャバクラに勤めてたみたいっす。
やれやれ、そらやばい店じゃな。確か園崎家の若頭の店じゃろ。
園崎あった。S 号関連か。
So S stands for Sonozaki?
難航しそうな山だな。噂じゃ仏さん、園崎の上納金に手をつけちゃったらしいっす。
女が上納金に手を出したか。裏に男がいそうじゃのう。女の単独犯なんてそうそうないぞい。
どうせもう死んでますよ。死体がまだ出ないだけで。
そうそう、おいさん。女の同居人生きてるみたいですよ。
生きてる？じゃあこれから死ぬんでしょうね。害虫が害虫を駆除してくれるんだから。本当に素敵な自浄機能だと思いますよ。
その紐なんですがね、北条鉄平なんですよ。
There's another Hojo alive?
北条？誰だい？
北条鉄平。去年ひなみ沢で起こった主婦撲殺事件の仏のご主人ですよ。
Beaten to death.
事件の後姿を消したって聞いてましたけど。そうか。 その女のところに転がり込んでたか。
Fuck is going on here?
ますますに園崎の匂いがプンプンだの。
彼氏は今どこに？
女のアパートに同居してたんすがね。女が自分を捨てたと思ったみたいで、店やたまりのあちこちを探し回ってるらしいっす。
Interesting. And with that, we are going to call it an episode. Next episode, we'll move on with the game, baby. Until then, this has been your boy Karagol Gaming. I'm out of here. Love y'all, and deuces.